Welcome to the Market Mystics podcast. I'm Joshua.
I'm Kim. Let's dive in. Welcome, everybody, to Thursday.
Welcome.
We have had so many guests on lately that I kind of don't know how to start an episode
without saying, hey, we have
it.
someone super special today.
I know. Today we're talking to somebody super special to Joshua.
It's Josh and Kim. Yeah, that's true. So we've had most recently Tommy Miller talking about immortality in his book Deathless. But we've had so many great guests. Trusika, and I'm really excited for you guys because we have a guest every week for the rest of the month.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty exciting. And some of them are already recorded. And I got to tell you, they're pretty good.
But that's funny. I have to say, so I hope that, I don't know, whoever's listening has listened to at least part of the Tommy Miller interview, if not all of it, because it has sparked some really interesting conversations in my life.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite non-mystical people that I talk to is my eye doctor, and I went and saw him yesterday for my annual exam. And so I talk to him once a year, right? But I'm also nearing my 40s, and he really likes to tell me like what that means for the deterioration of my eyesight. Mm-hmm. And I told him a couple years ago when he started bringing this up, I'm like, I'm going to stop you right there. I don't actually believe I'm going to die, so we don't need to have this conversation. I am reverse aging. Like there are things that I've shifted my belief system on. And he wasn't like, oh my gosh, you're a wackadoo. He's like, tell me about that. What makes you believe that? He's like digging in. And number one, I'm like, you should probably be on a podcast.
I think this is funny because if you go back a year in our podcast, probably close to exactly a year, you'll find a very similar conversation where Kim gets into really weird conversations with her eye doctor. And I think it's amazing.
It's so funny, but I love it. And he's very much like normal Christian. I don't know, goes to normal church service on Sundays, does the worship, hears the message, reads his Bible, like what you would kind of think or maybe have thought of a stereotypical Christian. And but they've been really great conversations. And even yesterday, he said the same thing to me yesterday that he said to me a year ago. He goes, you just let me know how that works out for you and how you do it. And I'm like, I'm going to tell you again, if you believe that you're dying and I believe that I'm living, how do you expect me to come back to you and tell you how it's going in 100 years? He's like, yeah, good point. But I told him, we just had this conversation with Tommy and about his 2 different books and how this is very much a thing. And he's like, I really have to look into this. I've got to look into this. And he's like, how practically do you do this when we're not seeing people do it? And I have to tell you, after that whole interview with Tommy, I came out of it thinking this has to be a belief system shift. And Josh and I even talked a little bit about this. I think the thing that Tommy said, he talked about like eating only organic chicken because it's what fuels you and it's what is good for your body and it's what nourishes it. And then like going astray and having just normal chicken and how your body will reject it.
Yeah.
Where it would or could nourish another person, but it has to do with the belief system, right?
Yeah, and if you believe that is what brought you health and immortality, exactly. And if you don't get it, then you'll condemn yourself for not having that.
Right. And it's that belief system. And so then Josh and I started talking. Well, how do we test this? Because you can't build a fake belief system because you won't believe yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You could tell everybody else. I could tell everybody else I'm only eating organic chicken for the rest of my life and preach it from the mountaintops. And I could tell everybody, but if I don't actually believe it, then it's not actually a shifted belief system.
Right.
So it's really hard to test.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also tricky, I think. At least this is my current belief system, that eating organic chicken or taking vitamins and doing things like that can actually help your body feel better, and it can be beneficial for you, but it won't bring you immortality. And I think that that can be tricky in processing it in your mind, because my mind runs to extremes. So I'm like, okay, well, if it only exists in my mind, then I'm eating donuts and fried chicken for the rest of my life. But that's also not the most beneficial choice for my body for every meal.
Right.
And so you get in sort of this weird I get in sort of this weird like mental gymnastics thing where I'm like, okay, well, it's this, but then it's also this, but it may be this. How do I put all those together, and how do I hold all that? And I'm making it way more complicated than Tommy made it. And maybe that's just part of my journey of walking through that conversation and what it meant. Um, but it's just interesting to me because there's a lot of aspects, and there's a lot of learning that probably needs to be unlearned, um, in order to make room for new beliefs to come in. My wife and I were just talking about this morning, and how there are some areas in our life, where we're feeling like we need to remove a few things to make space for something different to be there. And that can be a hard process. And it can be an uncomfortable process. But I think sometimes that has to happen in order for something else to be there. You have to remove the belief system of death in order to allow a belief system of life to be there.
Yeah. And I don't know, I guess I find it interesting. Like, to me, in all of this conversation, it is the belief system of eternal life that is the big one. And I'm like, well, let me test it on something smaller, like my diet or something, right? Just because that's what he brought up. But honestly, now I'm thinking, what if I start working on the big belief system and allow it to trickle down to some of the smaller belief systems and see how that serves me? And I would say, I don't think this is all theoretical. I'm somebody early in my faith, not even early in my faith. I was saved when I was like, I don't know, 13 or 14. And then I did things, but my sister was into it, but she wasn't around. And I was kind of a little bit rebellious in trying to be a Christian. And that's what that was early on. But then in my 20s, I really started seeking on my own, because that's where I was feeling the draw. Except that I'm not somebody who faith came to easily. And I had to work at shifting my belief system every day. And I was somebody who just simply believing in God, believing the gospel. I had to wake up every day and decide to believe it.
Mm.
And it was for a long time. That's all relative, but I mean, it was well over a year. It could have been a couple years. I don't know because I didn't actually measure it. But there then came a day when I didn't have to wake up and tell myself, okay, I believe this. I woke up and I did believe it. And it was like, oh, all of a sudden, yeah, we've shifted. And then there's that foundation there to then build on. So I do hold the belief that you can shift those things with some intentionality. And I don't know that it's always going to just be telling yourself this or what it needs to be. It's probably very individual, but I do think it's possible. And if it's something that you actually believe, like this is the thing too. I don't know that I'm even talking about manifesting things that you just want so much as I actually believe that this is for us. We've been taught our whole lives that it's not for us. Mm-hmm. So how do I shift back to that place where it is for us? Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of more what it is for me.
Mm. Yeah. That's really good. And we've talked about this so many times about awareness being the first step. And I think identifying what you want to be different and looking at what isn't lining up with that belief system is a great place to start identifying like places that need to change. And maybe to some extent that's going to be everything when you start, but like you can find aspects to start shifting. Tommy defined death as an environment of decay, and so decay in your health, decay in your relationships, decay in your finances, in all aspects. He said that Jesus came to bring life and life abundantly in all of those areas, in every area of life. And there may be some of them that are easier for you to latch on to than others. And I would say go for it. Like go through the door that's already open, mm-hmm. and then work on opening the other door. Start applying pressure to the other doors and see what gives next.
Mm-hmm. That's really good. And even that, I think sometimes it's putting pressure on those other doors and see what gives next, but sometimes it's also knocking and seeing if there's something that will be open to you.
Yeah.
And I would tend to say to not ignore those things either. Like it doesn't always have to be a struggle. It doesn't always have to be strife to get to places, right? It could be simply asking and having it given.
Yeah. Knock and it opens. I think it is important to pay attention. Okay, so we're called the market mystics. We believe that God wants a personal relationship with us and that he will communicate mysteries and secrets to us and just communicate life with us. And in that, you get in these realms where you get people who are seers or function in other ways. And often I think you find like gift envy. And I see it the most with people who function as seers. They're like, oh my gosh, there's an angel here. There's this, there's that. And that tends to be like, in my experience, the one that is desired most by people. And I don't think it's wrong to desire that gift if that's not how you're functioning. But I think it's also really important to look for the way that God is speaking to you, because there's lots of other doors that he can communicate with you. Um, and paying attention to how he's communicating to you already is important, I think, in opening other doors. If I'm only looking at the door of being a seer, but God's trying to speak to me, then I might be inclined to miss his voice because I'm looking for it in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this same thing applies in these belief systems that we're talking about, in how there there may be an area of your life that you are already seeing life and already seeing abundance. So lean into it, because that door is already open for you. And then start pushing for other areas that aren't open. But I think that in the same way that, like, most everyone who I've heard teach on the spiritual gifts will say, lean into the one that is already working for you, and more of the doors will start to open. And I think that the same thing will apply in these belief systems. Lean into the one that you already feel some movement in, that's already open a little bit, and the others will start to open too. I believe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's good. If I had one thing to add to that, and it's only one little thing, and it has to do with giftings and how you hear from the Lord and those things, I would say don't put limitations on how he can communicate with you. As someone who operates mostly as a seer, I have come to learn that it's it's not the highest way. And I still rely on my five senses in this body to hear from God, but he has infinite ways of communicating. And if he's communicating in a way with you that he doesn't communicate with other people, that's freaking awesome. Why? Because you're a little more mature and you don't have to rely on your eyes or your ears. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying it's immature to do these things, but I'm also saying don't despise the weird ways, because that means he knows you can handle it. And I think that's amazing. You know,
Yeah.
I love it when he speaks to me in a way that doesn't seem normal. You know?
Yeah.
I love that the most. Why? Because he's trusting me with something outside of normalcy.
And
And I
that's
like it.
fun, right?
It is fun. And it's fun to be able to discover him that way. And it also speaks to that individual relationship. You
Yeah.
know, sometimes in a family, you have a big family meeting, you speak to everybody the same way. Sometimes you leave a note, right? Sometimes it's something else. I don't know. I don't have all the examples in the world, but it all is based on intimacy, right? Like sometimes it's a knowing look from across the room because you know them that well. And it doesn't have to be an audible voice, and it doesn't have to be a written note, a normal way of communicating words. But I would just say don't despise those things, because I think it is actually really special and really powerful and speaks to kind of that intimacy that he's drawing you into.
Yeah.
I know that went a different direction, but there it is. There it is, you guys.
So good. So good.
Okay, well, I think we'll wrap it up for today.
I think it was a great conversation.
Oh, good. Okay. You guys, we'll see you again next week. Looking forward to all of the guests for this month. I hope you are too. They've all been so incredible. So I'm excited for you guys to hear them. As always, reach out if you have any comments, questions, join the Discord and get into a conversation. Like, this is what we really love.
Mm-hmm.
That connection, that community. It means something.
Definitely.
Yeah, cool. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for sticking around. Listen for new episodes every Monday and Thursday. Find us on all social media platforms by searching for Market Mystics. Don't forget to follow and subscribe. Visit upperroomcd.com where you can find more information about the hosts, projects, and guests. Go deeper by booking a coaching appointment focused on redefining identity and wealth in your life. See you next time.